This
All right.
conference will now be recorded.
Welcome everybody. Tonight we're going to talk about the new Q&A or the new rules and have a Q&A after that. We got me, Chris Rader, Monica's here, Carolyn Bigley. We all worked on the rules changes along with some other people. And we hope to cover as much information as we can in a short little presentation and then open it up to the questions and answers. First off, I'll tell Monica when to click. I don't think I can click the forward button, Monica.
Yep, you're ready?
So if you want to click
Just
the
say
next
next.
screen. Yep. Next.
Okay.
All right, so first off, just to make sure everybody knows, we've got the new rules posted on our nationaltreibball.com website. You can get there on the training rule page. They're all there for you to download and look at. Also a quick reference sheet besides other information. So just in case we have somebody who doesn't know that. And then next. Of course, the first thing is a lot of people, why are we doing this? That's my Mickey asking me why. So we had a group of us who got together going through, we're doing a lot. Mickey. We had a lot of questions. We were judging runs through the video titling, and we just kept coming up with differences of opinion. And so we started meeting probably 8-9 months ago, trying to resolve all these differences. And once we got into it, we started realizing we had things that were not written clearly, things we had questions about, and a lot of the rule changes came about just trying to resolve some of the conflicts in the old rules. And then we also got some new ideas of how we want to run things. We had some things that we had a lot of questions about, different runs we were seeing, and then we started asking, was it even important? Were we judging something that was important to the sport of Treibball? So a lot of things got changed from that. And then another reason we went through a lot of changes is we realized we really wanted to make it even more friendly for the veteran dogs. This is a sport that really lends itself to the veteran dogs, and we just wanted to make it even more friendly. So that's just kind of the high level why we made some of the changes we did. Okay, next. All right, so what are the big changes? We really shifted the game focus to getting the point ball first. Yeah, the picture. What I'm really hoping is after we get through this, you will not feel like my old Aussie Risa when she came out one day and found this little puppy border collie in her water bowl. Big change, and at first she wasn't very happy about it. So we're hoping to get everybody around and feeling a lot better than Risa did that day. So what do we have for changes? We have we really changed the game focus to point ball first. And if you get the point ball first, a lot of other things fall right in place. We did some point ball distance changes, and we've made some veteran class modifications, simplified the height classes. We now permit dogs on collars, and made a few little changes to the goal area, changes to the handler area faults, and of course the big one is we introduced the balls in order game. Now we're going to have another chat tomorrow on that, so we're not going to really cover the balls in order game today because we've got a whole chat for that tomorrow. Okay, next. All right, so point ball focus. This is where we had a lot of the rules changed around here because we had just a lot of questions trying to judge it in the video titling, and we found that things we questioned a lot of times we go into, we'd be saying, okay, well, when I watched it the third time, and we started saying, you know what, if you have to watch something 3 times to make a decision, you're not in a good situation to be able to judge that live. Even though, in live, you certainly would have probably a better view, but if you're having so many questions about, well, gee, is that legal or not? It's probably something needs to change. So some of the things we did, we took out the need for the dog being in a static position before you start. Before we required some form of a static position before you started the game with the dog. And now we don't have that. The judge doesn't have to be saying, gee, that dog wasn't standing still or wasn't sitting still. They don't have to be in a static position. We made it legal to touch the dog until they cross out of the handler box the first time. So before, we had handlers say, well, gee, I like to do a little nose touch to my hand before we start. Well, technically that's against the rules. People, when do we take off the leash? Can we touch them right after that? Just all kinds of questions. So we said, you know what? You can touch your dog up until they cross out of that box the first time. We removed the MFSL, minimum first send line, which also cascaded into, we removed the 3-second hold, and we removed the initial send refusal. So, we had all kinds of questions. A Sheltie does a little spin. A Sheltie spins, a lot of spinning Shelties. Shelties are they're spinning and they're moving backwards. Well, if the Sheltie's spinning and moving forward, is that okay versus one that doesn't? What if the dog just doesn't run quite straight out? We had so many questions, and we said, you know what? The key thing is if the dog runs out and gets the point ball first. If the dog stops and sniffs for a second, turns and looks back at their handler for a second and then goes on out, it's no big deal. That handler is just losing some time. And so there's already a penalty built in that if the dog stops, if the dog takes an indirect route, if the dog spins 3 times, the handler's already getting a fault, and that's happening in the fact that they're taking longer. So we realized we felt pretty comfortable by doing that, especially when we increased the penalty for not pinning the point ball first. So novice is the same; it's still 10 seconds. We increased it for intermediate to 20 seconds, and for advanced and masters, we made it an NQ if the point ball is not first. So, from our standpoint, we really raised the idea of you got to get that point ball first. So, and you're going to have time issues if your dog's not going straight out. So why make the judge put even more penalties on it? So that was our thinking, and that's the way that all kind of falls out. Next. We changed some point ball distances. None were increased. We didn't increase any point ball placements. Some were decreased. And then we made the veteran small through extra large, the same as the regular mini through extra small. And then the veteran mini and extra small dropped another 5 feet. And there was no change to pre-novice. So you'll see the intermediate, advanced, and master, the larger dogs, they moved down by 5 feet. And then we brought the mini extra smalls in line with the vets, and then drop the vets another. That allows us to do a number of things. One, it evened out some of the distances, so there weren't some real weird, when we charted out, we realized there were just some really weird jumps with the point ball. But what this also does is it allows us to move forward with some of the other veteran changes. And you'll see that in a second. But it also, we don't have the veterans, we wanted to drop their point ball distance, but we didn't want to end up with even 4 or 5 or 6 other point ball placements. We're trying to reduce that number. So going on to the veteran changes, next screen. All the veteran classes will play on the small field, the pre-novice novice field. So we really felt like our older dogs, they don't, that's part of the point. They don't need to be running out, chasing down balls 50, 75 feet out. And so we brought them down to the smaller field, and then we reduced their point ball distances, and we give them additional time for every level. So really making it a lot more friendly for elderly dogs. All right, next screen. All right, we did a few height class changes. I don't think they're too. It's not too monumental. Overriding thing is we would like the ball to be at least as tall as the dog's height at the withers. There were so many variations in how you could place your dog in a class. It was quite possible for you to be entirely legal and have a ball smaller than your dog's height at the withers. So we took out no more rounding of the actual height that we had. The way our rounding rule was written, it allowed you to make an awfully big rounding change. No more choosing between the height classes if you're close to a cutoff. And the judge may move the dog at a trial. And we open it up so titles transfer between heights, which we didn't have that before. So if you do need to change your heights, it's not like you lose your titles from your previous runs. Okay, next. All right, the goal in dog tags, some small changes. One, we just made sure it was in the rules. The goal sides must be stable without the handler holding them up, and the dog has to be able to play off of them. The goal, this is new, and I think it's an awesome ad. The goal may have a bumper to prevent the balls from rolling back onto the field. So some, what I call them the jump bumps, perhaps it's a little PVC pipe cut in half or a noodle, something that helps keep the balls in the goal when you're playing. And the dogs may wear their identification tags, especially with the video titling. A lot of people are setting up in places where it's not fully fenced, and they really want to keep the tags on their dogs in case something would happen and their dog gets loose and they have to search for their dog. So they really didn't want to be going out in these situations and not having identification tags. So our thought was, you already have to pay for a ball if you break it. So, and the reason people, our original reason for not allowing the tags is the tags might burst a ball. Well, you already have to pay for it, and you'll get an NQ for the ball breaking. So why not let you have the tags? Plenty of punishment. And so we decided to just let that be okay. All right, next slide. Some minor changes, advanced and masters. The permissible area faults were lowered. The dogs may use any part of their body to push the ball except biting. On deck area has to be separated by the playing field by 6 feet. Previously, it was right up against the playing field, so we felt it was better to have a little separation there. And the dogs may continue to compete in master level after achieving the outstanding title. The way it was worded before, once you completed your outstanding title in master level, you were done. So that was silly. We want you to keep playing. So open that up. And then next slide. And there, wake up. It's your turn, and it's time for your questions. What would you like to talk about?
I think they're marvelous changes.
Thank you.
That was the right answer.
That was good. I like that.
Is that Marianne?
Yes.
That's Marianne.
Yeah.
They are marvelous. That's a good word.
I got a question.
Yeah.
What's the age for veteran?
I want to say 7, but is it 8? Okay.
Poutine's a veteran now. That little girl, Whirly, she turned 8 in
Good
May.
to be old.
8. Yeah.
She's still as feisty.
Yeah. So is my And she refuses to go out farther than 45 feet.
Trying to make sure. Does anybody else have any other questions? I thought there'd be so many.
Yeah. I'm thinking.
So I'll have
There
to
it is.
say from the non-veteran that the not staying stagnant was a huge thing for at least my little one, because it really killed the drive. And just seeing some of the posts that just happened even this week of some of the younger people and the younger dogs that are playing, that I think that really 3-second stop really kind of curtailed some of that enthusiasm. So I know like the initial thing was the control, but I think the game balls in order. Yeah, some of the it's really cool to see these younger dogs playing and these younger handlers playing, and they want this more vibrant sport. So I think that kind of the change is also geared to that as well. And not only, and we also help the veterans by not because of just bodily things that happen, that they just don't have the speed. The handlers just, I shouldn't say. You know what I mean? We don't want to move as much after you hit your midlife. You don't want to move around as much, so it's easier. And that, but
that's what I tell my students.
I know, but let's go back to the dogs. So the veterans, I think we did a lot too. I just saw it a lot in my students. The dogs were really struggling seeing the balls after a certain distance. They just were getting confused, and they would be in novice. They could push 8 balls at 25 feet, but they could not push 1 ball at 40. So, and if the ball rolled backwards, they were out of the game. And I felt like I was, kind of like, what could we still be playing at a shorter distance? So I think that just bring everything closer. It keeps everybody in the game. It keeps everybody happy. You know, struggling to try to get better. You can stay where you are, maybe challenge them a little more with more balls. But you're not creating anxiety because they don't want to go out any further. Dogs get anxious. They want to stay close to their owners. But yeah, I think the changes really kind of did the best of both worlds. We made a sport that now younger dogs can play, and they can just go as fast as they want. That's and if you want the more control, the balls in order is what does that. You have to go to a certain ball, so you're going to have the control there. But so win-win, marvelous, like Marianne said, marvelous.
Yep.
So how about if you run through walking on from the point of the team walking onto the field to the first push of the point ball. So just talk us through how that flow is now with the changes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Chris, you got that?
I don't think Chris is online.
Oh, she went offline.
I think
Okay.
so.
I'm going in and out. So basically, I think it's the same thing. So if you were teaching that 3-second at the point, it's pretty much the same thing. You want them to go around the triangle, but they don't have to. They could just go out and just bam, just start pushing instead of what was happening with the judging was that the dog was not supposed to move when it was at that 3-point position. So we were calling faults all the time because the dog might move, shift a little bit or move. I know my border collie would tend to like start circling. Even though he didn't push the point, he would just move to kind of see me, make sure, you know, like, especially when he got to the distance more. And the balls become like they have a harder time to see behind the balls when they get a further distance. So a lot of the dogs were moving at that 3 seconds, and they not necessarily were hitting the ball, but they were moving. So they were getting faulted multiple seconds just for moving. I'm like, well, why do we really need that? What is that really teaching? You know, the dog's waiting to push that point ball. What do we really want to, what's our real goal here? Do they really have to stay? So we thought that, well, the goal is we really want them to get that point ball. We want them to break it there. And in the beginning, I think it's novice and intermediate, right? You're allowed, you just get a penalty if you don't do the point still, but I think it's advanced and masters, correct? That where and you have to get the point ball in. So we made that a little more stricter, but we gave you the leniency that they can linger out there if they want. They just have to, the point ball has to be first. So if you've ever watched like other venues that do it, like the dog isn't in a stagnant position behind the point ball, whereas before that 3 second, they had to be right there. They could be out, you know, border collies, especially, I think that's where I'm like, I was seeing like they were kind of more out in the field. And I know Chris, a couple of her students, the dogs weren't precisely behind that tip of the triangle. They were kind of over to the side, but it didn't, as long as they hit the point, who cares? So that's where we were kind of struggling with the judging, is that it wasn't like this. They didn't have to be in the stagnant position at a certain exact point. So am I answering a question? I mean, you could teach it the same way. I mean, I certainly, I mean, obviously my dogs knew how to do it, but they just don't have to hold that position. They just have to get behind, but I think it's still, you still kind of want to teach it the same way, because you generally want them to be, the more they're centered behind that point, the more guarantee they're probably going to hit it. But, you know, right. I've seen border collies be off to the side and come in and pick that point fall off. So we just wanted to give more options for different trainers, different ways of training, that they could not have to be in that center position. They can, as long as that, does that make sense? So
yeah.
Is everybody else offline? I can't tell what it's technology. Okay. Marianne, what do you think? How are your dogs been with the new chain? Have you worked on it since?
No, it's just been too beastly hot here in Virginia. We're waiting for fall.
I think it's beastly hot everywhere. Yes, it was. That's been an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm back. I had technical difficulties.
That's okay. I think we all have that.
I could hear you. I could hear you, but my microphone died and my computer was stalling out. So,
yeah, I got a storm brewing behind me.
For those of you that can see the screen, I pulled up the video that shows the rule changes for the game start. And so it kind of goes through the highlights. With the video titling, especially, because you're being your own judge, you got to make sure you do the go and ready at the right time, because instead of doing it after the leash comes off, you do it before the leash comes off. So that's probably one of the trickiest parts for video titling to remember.
Oh, okay.
If you've been doing it the old way. So pull this video up and watch it a couple times. I can't really play the video, but in the old rules, we would walk in, remove our leash, put the dog in a static position, and then look at the judge, and the judge would say, go and ready, and then we could release. But now we walk in, take our leash off, we walk in, we wait for the judge to say, go and ready, then we take the leash off. Okay. And we can send anytime we want.
Cool.
After that. Okay. So this has the
Right.
highlight. So that's the first big change. And then I'm not sure if you guys, this might just be popping on your screen from view to view because it won't actually play. But then the next slide part of it says that when the leash is removed, the dog does not need to hold that static position before the send. So if you want to have your hand on your dog's collar and hype him up or give him a pat right then or whatever, you can do that. And then we get to, once you have that point position, you don't have to hold it for the 3 seconds. You can hold it as long as is best for your dog. For some dogs, they need that 3 seconds, but for other dogs, they just need, a microsecond or they lose motivation. So that's the game start for video titling. And I think the hardest one for people will be the call, the go and ready call, because that's what we've already struggled with. You're yelling go and ready as your person is putting their hand already on the leash because they're used to taking it off first. So check out that video,
Right.
and that'll help remind you.
Right. And perhaps and I had to step out for a minute, so I might be repeating something you said, but kind of the idea now is the judge is basically letting you know the field is ready, I am ready, you can start. And from there you can take the leash off and you're ready to go. So it's much more the judge saying we are ready, you can start as soon as you're ready. So it's kind of a focus change.
This is Barb. I think they're great changes. And I hope we don't have a super windy fall, and maybe I'll try for our first title this fall.
Oh, I know. Us mountain people have a struggle. You more than I lived out west. I feel I know it's a struggle, but I can't tell you how many videos I have where the ball is just out of frame, out of frame, out of frame, and you just see Bodie just take off.
Yep.
I'm like, I should get bonus points for him going out and getting it, but it's definitely, yes, wind is a factor.
Barb, did you have any questions though?
I don't think so. I haven't actually had time to read the rules. I got talked into hosting a canine nosework trial in September, so that has sucked all the oxygen out of my life. I'm really looking forward to it, but it's like, Treibball? What Treibball? I don't have time for Treibball. So as soon as that trial, if I survive the trial, we are right back on Treibball.
Awesome. Well, there's that quick reference sheet. Don't forget to read through that because that tells you. The highlights to the rule changes will tell you everything that changed, and then you can go look them up. You don't have to read the whole thing if you don't want to.
Well, and I think for my 11-and-a-half-year-old Sheltie, he's physically in good shape, but he gets so wound up. Somebody was talking about the spinning Sheltie, and it's like, well, I got one, and he has a hard time going farther out because he gets too far and he just starts spinning. And so I think he'll be able to enter the veteran class, and I think that'll be good for him.
Oh, great.
I think it'll be less frustrating for him, which is good.
Yeah.
I have a question. Is the title different for veteran?
It just says veteran,
title?
right? Yeah, it's the same title.
No.
It just
Same title.
Yeah.
Veteran is a division, just like the A division, the B division. So it's not a special title. So
Okay. It's not like preferred in agility.
No.
Okay.
Can you expand on the height? So my girl's 11 inches at the withers, and I have a tough time with either putting her on a 35 centimeter ball or the 45.
Mhm.
So what do I do now? Because I forgot what the beginning presentation was.
I'm bringing up the chart right now, so here it
Yeah.
comes.
Okay.
How do you like that?
So you said your dog's what, 11 something?
11.
Yeah,
Just
so you should be.
11.
Yeah. So you should be good on a 35 centimeter ball.
Yes. So
I find
Pappy's
those are
the
kind
same
of the
thing.
weird
He's
ones to
they're very hard to find. I'll tell you that. And
I know.
I went on
Unless
yeah, they're
yeah.
very, and they don't come in many colors. It took me searching on Amazon. I still have two balls that I had to put like orange duct tape around just to make them look different. So those 35, and some are really so light that they like bounce. So yeah, that's a tough one. But yeah, you definitely should not be, because Pappy, those 45-inch ones, even though they 45 centimeters, they're way over his head. So if you have 11-inch, your corgi would be totally, if you got out to intermediate, he couldn't see you and he'll start barking and be pissed, because that's what I was like, why is he can do this, but he couldn't see me anymore. I think I posted once where you just see Pappy's ears. And
I remember that.
Yeah. So that's that.
Although
I think 35 is probably. Yeah, go ahead,
if they
Ray.
inflate to true size, I bought a pile of 65 centimeter balls of different makes, and Deacon is 25 inches, and not one of those 65 centimeter balls came up to 25 inches.
Oh.
That is, and I think that's the one where I see the biggest problem. The 65s. I've had the same thing.
Yes. But yeah, I've actually went down to 55, even though Bodie's a large dog. I use the 55, and even still in Masters, he can't. He circles because he can't see me. Like from that distance, he's still like, it still seems to be over his head, and that's a 55-inch. So yeah, it really. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, like it really depends on the brands. Like 55s can even be. They can be at the chest. But you put that at a distance, and you might have a little hill. Like I mean, Asheville, we don't have flat. There's no flat property. If you get on a hill, they can't see you. So yeah, I think I mean, the more that we see, we'll probably have. I mean, unless it's really blatantly where the ball is so much smaller than the dog. Yeah. I think we're gonna have to be. I mean, they're all different. I mean, I all my balls are different. They're all the same. They could be 55s, but they're all like different. They all look different. They're not
right.
Yes.
So
it'd be fun on the ball chart. Ooh, you go.
What, Amanda?
So maybe like I can say for a fact that Pembroke corgis belong in the extra small category. So if anybody ever was like, well, I have this breed dog, what do you think it should belong, what height class should it be in? So maybe like if we got some like average breed dogs, we could say, oh, they usually fall into these categories.
No, it's definitely extra small, and they generally jump like 8-inch, like you do agility as well, right? They jump 8-inch.
Yep. 12's a struggle.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would just say unless it's blatantly smaller. The thing that we had the reason we talked about ball size for a little bit, and I think it became like a safety issue, because when it does get too small and the dog's running at a kind of speed, they do tend to flip over it. So it wasn't like, where you're cheating, it's easier, because it's not necessarily easier to do the smaller balls than the bigger. It was more about like when like some of the dogs we've seen, or even sometimes I just get lazy, and I'm sick of taking out a 35-inch and a 55 when I'm practicing. So I leave the 35s out, and Bodie pushes it, but then he's like, he's all, it gets pretty chaotic.
Right.
because he's going way too fast for this size. So that was more like a safety issue. It wasn't necessarily like you're cheating because that ball's smaller.
No, I don't think the smaller ball makes it. I don't think it makes it easier for the
at all.
dog. It's much more the no. In fact, sometimes when I see a dog struggling to push, the idea is probably the ball's too small. It'd be easier for them to push if the ball was a little bigger. It's much more the safety. If the ball's too short, they're likely to go over the ball and chaotic rolling. So,
and there was also
much more the safety.
Seen like with dogs that, because I started training my dogs on soccer balls because I didn't know any better. I started on YouTube, and they were biting it, because it was too small.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there was also, there was a lot of other factors of just if the ball is too small, they're just gonna, if they can pick it up in their teeth or control it with their teeth.
Right.
So
true that.
Also depends on how the dog chooses to push the balls.
Yes.
Say that again.
I said it also depends on how the dog chooses to push the balls. I've got one that flips her legs up and
her legs up.
basically.
Yeah. You're right. They use the front
of
your legs. Yeah.
And then I've got a very gentle pusher that's never going to hurt a ball. She likes to follow there. Chris knows who.
Little Allie pushes it with her whiskers. I don't think her nose even touches it.
Yeah. I think I was good to one of yours where it's like pecking. And then your other one uses the front of a chest and your feet. And Patty actually switched to that. He used to use his head. Now he uses his front paws. He just does it with his chest. So it's funny. Well, it's a journey, guys, and I'm glad that you're here because it's still such a young. It's micro stage sport. It really is.
Yeah.
Right.
So
it's very young.
Yeah. These are all just people like us getting together, you telling what works and what you're seeing, and so, and just like any sport, you see it changes like every 5 years. The rule changes, and there's reasons why. A dog gets injured, or you find this doesn't work, or so for something that is just so minuscule. These are all just things that we just saw from watching all these runs that were submitted, and from what you say in these chats, or dog struggling with this. Is that really necessary? Is this really, has it fun for the dog? Is it too challenging or hindering these people from playing it? The reason I went to it is because I had a herding breed, and what the hell when I'm not doing agility because I don't have a job, what the hell do I do this herding dog? I don't have sheep. So like this just seemed like So
hey, I wondered if we might talk about the MFSL and where the point ball gets placed, because that's one thing that I realized we didn't cover.
Can you blow up that picture?
I did. It should be on your screen right now. I've got the diagram.
You make it bigger, so like.
Oh, make it bigger. I can do that. So, the MFSL was the outer edge of the ball. Perfect. And the new line now is the center of the ball. And so you're not technically not behind the line if your dog's paws are under the curve of the ball, which is what made us realize that rule was challenging to judge and difficult to train.
Right.
So we had a lot of dogs who would have their paws under the curve of the ball, and technically the paws were then over the MFSL, and that would be a penalty or even an NQ. I can't remember. So that's one thing that I realized we hadn't covered.
Yes, it was the send out. That was the big thing. Was the dog even passed? Like you weren't even supposed to count the 1, 2, 3 if the dog wasn't past the triangle. That's where I think that was our biggest one. That was like our biggest struggle is to come up with that rule because, you know, and I think Chris, you have it like if the dog was off the side, we wanted them out to a certain point. They couldn't break the formation. The big thing is that they weren't busting through. They were getting past and they were picking off the point. So that's when we came up with the well, what is the actual, not to be a pun, but what is the point of why we want them to go past? Is to get that point ball first. Right. But who really cares where we had you know.
Right. We had a ton of questions as we looked at that, you know.
Yes, it was so tough.
We wouldn't, you know, theoretically, the judge would never start to count if that dog wasn't behind the line.
Yeah.
The line is imaginary. The line is not required to be on the ground. Right. So you're trying to judge, is that dog really behind the ball? And it just became really apparent.
Hideous.
Yeah, it just became really difficult. And then we looked at it, it's like, you know, then your dog just has to be behind the point ball. Well, what qualifies as behind the point ball? And do I really care? What if my dog's 10 feet behind the point ball?
Yeah.
20 feet behind the point ball? Well, you know what? Honestly, it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
So the point is bringing in the point ball. Who cares? Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. You know, so let's make the game focus on what's important, and that's bringing the point ball first, not where exactly does your dog sit. Are they behind some imaginary line? And where is that line? We realized it was quite the headache.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't truly adding.
Yeah. No, you're right. And it was, and then we tried a bunch of, I know I tried with like Bodie and Pappy, we tried like putting tape on the floor, which was great. And now we could see it, but how logical is that to ask anybody to actually do? And like, and if it, you know, hopefully we do have live trials someday, like, how is the judge really going to see that? So that's why that was that reason. And then, you know, I just trained a dog the other day that goes out to the point and then it runs back 10 more feet. I don't know why, but it just does. It just wants to go further. It just goes way, and I've seen other dogs do that, like just go, they're way past the triangle. So this just eliminated any question of, you know, are they off to the side or their feet under the ball? Point is, do whatever the heck you want, just bring that point ball in first, and you can't break the formation, you can't pick off.
Yep.
So if anybody was really diligent about their MFSLs and were being very careful to set their ball so that the curve of the outermost curve of the ball was at the line, you actually have to set the ball farther out so that the center of the ball is on the line now. So it's actually a tad bit further distance for your point ball.
Right.
Did I read that we can't reach out of the handler area anymore?
You never could.
You never could.
You never could.
I mean, you could get away with, you would get a penalty, but I think it was like novice, you were allowed 2 times, and the intermediate, you were allowed like 1, but then you get like a 15-second penalty, which isn't much. But then we were thinking like once you're past intermediate, you should know better. Like your dog should be pushing at least into the hand. That's what, I mean, there should be no reason for you. I mean, our thought was that handle, that 25 feet beyond that 25, or what is the goal? Sorry, 15 feet plus the 25 feet. Like you're at this point, once you get to advance, you shouldn't be reaching. It's kind of like any, you know, sport. At some point, all right, we're gonna let you, and I'll do agility because it's the only sport I know. Novice, you're allowed to get away with all this. Now here, open, we're going to give you one fault, but you know, advanced, we're not going to, you should not be having to reach anymore. That was like kind of the logic behind that.
I do have a question on that, which I've never known. If you're solidly in the handler's area and your hands are not outside the handler's area, you're allowed to touch the ball even though the back bulge of the ball hasn't crossed the line yet, correct?
No.
No.
So I mean, once the ball comes into the handler's area, the entire ball has to be in the area.
Yeah.
I've highlighted on the screen the rule, yeah. And really, so for the safest bet, especially for video titling, is to really have your dog basically bring the ball all the way into the goal.
Yeah.
That's what I've been doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But you can, as once the ball is completely in the handler box, you may touch it, but not before. And you can't step on the line, but it's not like your hand can't go outside the box. You just can't touch the ball.
When you're signaling.
Yeah. Right. You could be standing right near the front of the box, and you can signal, and your arm can go out over that box, outside the box.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But you can't step over it, and you can't
touch
that's
the
what
ball.
I'm talking
about. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Not your foot,
again, for video titling, it's better to kind of keep your feet around the goal line, so that there's no question for the judge.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't make the judge think. Yeah.
I brought up the penalties on those handler area faults, so if you guys can see that. Make it a little bigger, maybe.
That's good.
Yeah. So we added the NQ for advanced after 2 incidences, and we added the NQ after 3 incidences for the other levels. A lot of incidences. I mean, really.
Oh, wait, I thought that we were. I thought we got rid of it at advanced. But I'm saying, like, I'm right. This would be.
Yeah. Had a lot of rules to keep track of in our brain.
I know it was.
Where's our quick reference guide? Did we each have one printed out and at our hand? I left mine at the field.
So advanced gets to step or touch once. Is what it comes down to. You do it twice.
Oh, okay.
You get the fault.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying it. That's right. Okay, I'm sorry. I said that wrong. 2 incidences is the NQ, so you get to do it once. Thank you. I read that wrong.
Get to do it once.
So,
and then masters.
Don't do it. You say.
So sorry, I was wrong. I said advanced. You can.
So can you scroll back up?
Yeah. So Chris, why don't you just go over that again, because I said it wrong.
And some of it's our wording is kind of funny. So pre-novice, novice, and intermediate. If you do it 3 times, it's an NQ, which means you can do it twice and you're legal. Advanced, if you step on the line or if you touch the ball outside the box. If you do it 2 times, you got an NQ, which means you can do it once and you're still fine. Masters, don't do it.
At all.
Don't do it. NQ.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Which by the time you're masters, you should know that.
Yeah, that was So a question for you all, though, it would be like I feel like in a way, because I'm since a lot of us started learning the sport on YouTube, as we're trying to, like, that I think is one of our goals is that we are going to have, you know, like some lesson plans and videos of actually So maybe that's something that we should think of actually producing is like examples of, I mean, even if it is one of our dogs, like this is what would be qualified as NQ, like me doing a master's and I step over the line, like, okay. I mean, it's just kind of like, it's hard because there is no live trial. So it's not like you get to see firsthand what's going to be. So,
Exactly.
you know, and read it, you know, I don't know. I don't think I've ever read another dog sport rule thoroughly. I think you have to kind of watch it and see, like, I mean, as much as you try, like sometimes you just have to see, okay, well, that's a fault, but why did the arm go up there?
Well, we're just about out of time, guys. Does anyone have any last topics or questions they want to bring up?
So I do have a request for everybody is as you read the rules, you know, we spent what felt like forever putting together and then revising, and then we sent them out and had some other people review them, and they all came up with great points. You know, as you read, go ahead and still shoot us questions, because there's still possibly things out there that are just oopses, or doesn't make sense. So if you read that stuff, you find something, shoot us a question. There's a chance we've got another oops in there. A lot of editing happened, but still, always possibility for more.
Address? Which email address
Probably
do you
the
want us to use?
best. Monica, what are you with?
Which email
the info
address?
one?
That would probably be,
Yeah.
you can always do info@nationaltreibball.com, or you could send it to CSV, which is the competition services, at nationaltreibball.com. All right. Well, I think we're ready to close the chat. It was super fun having you all here. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
See some of you hopefully tomorrow.
Hope
yeah,
so.
hope to see you guys
I don't
tomorrow.
know. I'm having housework.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
All right.